Lyft, Uber, grow a pair, walk, or hail a taxi cab. Although I have been here before, it's such a nice day and any excuse for a train ride, eh? I chose to walk to the site. It's about 40 minutes from the train station. Most people arrive, of course, by automobile. The nearest highway is California State Route 4. Once you get there, there are a couple of things that really stand out. One, it's rarely crowded, and two, it's free. After you've said hello to the park ranger at the front desk, you can work your way through the gift shop. I am not quite so sure what John Muir would have thought of a gift shop. Anyway, it is what it is. Through the door to the right is a theater that shows a 20-minute film about Muir. It explains how an accident led to his ultimate fame.
On doctor's orders, Muir sits in a darkened room for 4 weeks, his mind wandering to places he dreams of seeing, like the mythic Yosemite Valley, which he's read has cascades that batter the earth and trees that stretch to the sky. The eye Muir thought was lost has in fact slowly healed.
This affliction has driven me to the sweet fields. God has to nearly kill us sometimes to teach us lessons.
The would-be Edison turns instead to reinventing himself. He chooses, in his own words, to be a tramp. For months, he drifts across America, a trek he will one day memorialize in the book A 1,000-Mile Walk to the Gulf.
Speaking of walking, once you're done in the visitor center, you can start working your way to the house that's up on the hill. It's more than a house, it's a mansion. It was built in 1882. Muir apparently played some sort of role, but it was his in law's house. It's quite large. It has 10,000 square feet of space. It has 17 rooms, not all of which are open to the public. But nevertheless, it is an interesting place to see and to ponder why a man known so much for the outdoors was able to reconcile living in such a fancy place for the last 24 years of his life. Once inside, you'll be greeted by another park ranger, and the ones I have encountered have been very friendly and full of a lot of information. They point out that there's a booklet that gives you a tour of the house. It's self-guided. You take the pamphlet and return it when you're done. Work your way through the various rooms. The furniture that you see is not furniture that belonged to the Muirs, but is rather representative of the era in which they lived there. A little bit more about John Muir. He was born in Scotland in 1838, and when he was 11 years old, his family moved to Wisconsin. He went to school in that state, and his accident was at a carriage facility in Indianapolis. Lost his sight in one eye for a while, but he recovered. That window at the end of the hallway on the second floor, Muir and one of his daughters apparently would crawl through there on warm summer nights and sleep above the front entrance of the house up on the roof. Muir's father-in-law was a Dr. Strenzel, and he's the one who acquired the land in the Alhambra Valley south of Martinez in 1853. Something around 50 acres at the time. This room, by the way, is where Muir did much of his writing. 300 magazine articles and 12 books during his lifetime. Anyway, back to Dr. Strenzel. He started a fruit orchard in the back, and eventually the property grew to 2,600 acres. When he died in 1890, Muir moved in, and he kept the farm going, and it was such a nice source of income that he could continue going on his many trips to Yosemite and Alaska and elsewhere, and also have his family, wife, who was a pianist, and two daughters, live very comfortably up on the hill. During his lifetime, there are many highlights to point out. One was that Muir was largely responsible for Yosemite becoming a national park in 1890. He met the then President of the United States in Yosemite in 1903 and spent a few nights camping with the president, uh, persuading Theodore Roosevelt to protect more federal lands and turn them into national parks. Up in the attic, you see an enormous amount of space, which when the Muirs lived there, they uh, apparently kept furniture that they did not want to have in the rest of the house. Might sound familiar to some of you with attics. Anyway, the attic today has some very modest exhibits. And also there is another stairwell, or a set of stairs rather, that leads up to the tippy top of the mansion, where you will be able to get some sweeping views of the area, including the ranch or the orchard that is to the west of the house, and also to the extremely busy freeway, Highway 4, that runs about 100 yards away from the house. After you have visited the mansion, you can go explore the orchard and get a sense for some of the things that Muir and his father-in-law grew. The first time I visited the John Muir National Historic Site was in the year 2000, and there was a tree there, a redwood, that Muir himself had planted as a seedling. The tree back in 2000 was still doing pretty well, but since then it succumbed to probably the climate not being all that favorable here at this low elevation. Anyway, so all that remains of the tree now is basically its skeleton. Nearby, there is a shed that contains equipment that was typical of the period when Muir and his father-in-law were there. It also pays tribute to the Chinese laborers who did much of the work. Beyond the orchard, there is another large structure. It's called the Martinez adobe, but since 2020, it's been off limits for visitors because it was considered not to be stable. Even though you can't enter the adobe house, you can sit out front and get a bucolic view of what this place was like in Muir's day, or it was sort of like in his day. It's probable, though, that there were not leaf blowers ruining the audio atmosphere, but what can you do? Well, I hope you've enjoyed this short visit. We'll explore more of Northern California soon. Meanwhile, all the best. And by the way, how long do you think it will take for me to grow a John Muir length beard?